If you're a leader, you're on the front line of safety. Simple as that. So today, we're going to dive into the most common chain of responsibility hazards you face every day, and more importantly, the specific actions you're expected to take. And look, this isn't just about best practice. This is about your legal duty. Okay, let's just start with the most critical point, right here. This quote gets right to the heart of it all. This isn't some vague company policy we're talking about. This is a legal expectation. When you see a problem, a clear warning sign, and you do nothing, well, a court is going to see that as you personally failing in your duty. That's the standard.
And this isn't about some rare once-in-a-blue-moon event. The risks we're about to cover, the truck with a broken taillight, the stressed-out driver, the new worker who's not quite sure what they're doing, these are the things you and your team see every single day. The potential for a breach is constant.
Right, so let's get practical. Your duty really boils down to spotting and managing 4 key hazards. We're going to break each one down so you know exactly what to look for and, more importantly, exactly what to do when you see it.
So here's our roadmap for this explainer. First up, non-compliant vehicles. Then, the pressure that comes from time slots. Third, untrained workers doing critical tasks. And finally, the really serious one, impaired workers. Let's jump into that first one. So, picture this. A subcontractor's truck rolls up to your gate, and right away, you can see one of its tires is totally bald, a taillight is smashed, and there's a pretty obvious oil leak. Now, the risk here isn't just about the truck itself. It's about the choice you make. If you load that vehicle, you're putting your team at risk. And if you let it leave, you're basically part of the problem on the public road. So what's your duty here? What's the bare minimum? First, you've got to identify. That means your team needs to be trained to spot these obvious defects. Second, you have to control the situation. You need a clear, established process for refusing to load or unload that vehicle. No arguments. And third, you report it. Every single time it has to be documented and communicated back to the vehicle's operator and your own leadership. So the bottom line, the key action is this. You absolutely must have a formal quarantine or rejection process. The vehicle gets moved to a safe area and work just stops. And let me be perfectly clear on this. Your legal duty to safety always, and I mean always, overrides any commercial pressure or customer agreement. Period. All right, let's move on to the second hazard. Now, this one isn't about the truck's condition, but the conditions you might be creating. A really rigid, unforgiving time slot system, well, it can directly pressure a driver to speed to get to you, to skip a legally required rest break, or to queue up in an unsafe spot. When that happens, you become a contributor to fatigue and speeding. Your duties here are all about being proactive. First, you need to plan your booking system with some flexibility built in. Second, you need to communicate a clear process for drivers who are running late. Don't just turn them away and create another problem. And third, you need to manage your own site's performance. Keep an eye on those gate-to-gate times. If your site is the one causing the delays, well, you own that risk and you have to fix it. Really, the key action here is all about a mindset shift. You've got to treat your schedule as a guide, not an unbreakable rule. It's a risk management tool first and a scheduling tool second. The main goal is always safety, not just being on time. Okay, hazard number 3, untrained workers. This could be a forklift operator whose license just expired, a new scheduler who doesn't get the fatigue rules, or a contractor who hasn't been properly inducted on your site's rules. Anyone doing a safety-sensitive job without the verified skills is just a massive risk waiting to happen. So how do you manage this? It's all about having a system. First, you have to verify competency. That means a system that tracks training records and license expiry dates. Next, you have to induct every single worker, including contractors, with training for their specific role before they start. And finally, you have to supervise new workers. Watch them, make sure that training is actually sticking. The key action here is an absolute non-negotiable rule. No training, no task. A worker cannot touch a safety-critical function until you have personally verified and documented that they are competent. It's really that simple. And that brings us to our fourth and final hazard, an impaired worker. This could be one of your own people or a visiting driver who seems like they're under the influence of alcohol or other drugs. The source material calls this an immediate and extreme safety risk, and trust me, that is not an exaggeration. Your duties here have to be immediate and decisive.
First, you must have a clear policy, usually zero tolerance. Second, you and your leaders have to be trained to identify the signs, slurred speech, erratic behavior, the smell of alcohol, and most importantly, you must act. The second you have a reasonable suspicion, you remove that person from any and all safety-sensitive duties. This is not optional.
The number one thing to do here is follow your company's procedure to the letter. Remove the worker from their duties and arrange for them to get home safely. You cannot let them keep working, and you absolutely cannot let them get behind the wheel of a vehicle and drive away.
Okay, so we've covered the 4 main hazards. But, knowing what to do and actually feeling empowered to do it can be 2 very different things. So let's tackle a couple of the hard questions that often make leaders hesitate in the moment.
Here's the classic one. You see the signs, but you don't have a breathalyzer in your pocket. You suspect someone is impaired, but you don't have that hard, concrete proof. What's the right move? What can you actually do?
And the answer, honestly, is pretty liberating. You're not a police officer. The legal standard for you isn't proof, it's reasonable suspicion. Your number one duty, your first and only action in that moment, is to protect the safety of everyone on your site. State your concern calmly and remove the risk. And here's another one that pits safety against the commercial side of things. If you turn away a subcontractor's truck because it's clearly unsafe, are you on the hook for their lost time and money? Is it going to cost your company?
And the answer to that is definitive. Your legal duty to ensure safety is your highest priority. It trumps commercial concerns every single time. Rejecting a genuinely unsafe vehicle isn't just something you can do, it's something you are required to do. It is a completely defensible action in the eyes of the law.
So let's just pull this all together. These aren't just 4 separate issues. They're all interconnected parts of your total responsibility for keeping your site and the roads safe.
When you boil it down, the right choices are pretty clear. You do have procedures for unsafe vehicles. You do treat time slots as a flexible tool. You do take any suspicion of impairment seriously. What you don't do is turn a blind eye to get a job done faster, enforce a schedule so rigidly that it creates risk, or let someone you suspect is impaired keep working or get behind the wheel.
So I'll leave you with one final thought. Every single day, you are going to face moments where safety and commercial pressure are pulling in opposite directions. The question isn't if it's going to happen, but what you will do when it does. And when that moment comes, you have to ask yourself, which choice will actually protect me?